June 2014, WagerTalk joined Twitter. August 2014, Prez loaded the first ever picks at WagerTalk. September 2014, Marco D'Angelo and Gianni the Greek filmed the first ever video for WagerTalk TV. Fast forward to today, and we now have over 58,000 Twitter followers, 110,000 subscribers on YouTube, and have become the premier brand in sports betting. So thank you. We truly appreciate everyone who has supported this amazing journey. And on Thursday, January 19th at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, all daily picks packages that day will be priced at $11, including any 5% best bets normally priced at $35. And all one-day all access normally priced at $39 will be cut in half and priced at only $19. No coupons will be needed. All handicappers at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo are included in Customer Appreciation Day. And discounts will go live at midnight Wednesday, January 18th.
Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report Playoff Edition. We are talking the divisional round, where these lines are going, sides, totals. We're getting them teed up for you. I am Drew Martin. Teddy covers alongside, co-hosting here. Playoffs are among us. Teddy, welcome in, buddy. How you feeling?
Heck of a weekend in terms of drama, point spread, sides, totals, and obviously still one more game to be played on Monday night. Our focus is not on Monday Night Football tonight with Cowboys and Bucs going. We're going to look at the 3 games that are already set for next week, talk about where the lines open, where they're likely to move, any nuances we want to be aware of, and we'll also do some projections for the 4th playoff game next weekend, whether it's San Fran versus Tampa or San Fran versus Dallas. We have the potential matchups. I'll talk about what my powering numbers are for those teams and some things we might want to pay attention to tonight that might help us in terms of figuring out which way that San Fran versus Team X line is likely to move once it gets posted. So it's not again, we have 4 games to talk about. One of them we can't talk about properly. So we will have time today to answer some questions from those of you who are watching live. Feel free to throw a comment in the chat, question in the chat, and Drew will bring it up before this show is through. So let's get into it.
Fire away, guys, in the live chat. Also, if you're watching on replay, feel free to reply below on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. We'll answer them on next week's show. So, love everybody coming in live here, guys. Please smash that like button. Let's get into it, Teddy. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific kick. We're going down in rotation order using the WagerTalk live odds screen. 301, 302, Jacksonville Jaguars, Kansas City Chiefs here, Teddy covers. We get the Chiefs minus 8.5 home favorites. There is a -8. There's also a -9 out there, but consensus line -8 in the hook as the favorite in Arrowhead, 52 being the total. Kind of the Cinderella story here. Jaguars at the number 1 seed Chiefs. What are we thinking in Kansas City?
So with all these games, I'm going to talk about what my powering numbers are, what the opening market numbers were, and what we've seen from the markets since the opener. And my powering number here came exactly where the market is, 8.5 for KC and Jacksonville. And the markets have been pretty steady in that range. As you mentioned, there is an 8 out there, there's a 9 out there, but the prevailing number, 8.5. Total open 52, got bet down to 51.5. Now we've seen some over money back to 52. So originally I thought that we may see some significant under money in this game with the opener getting bet down immediately. But that hasn't been the case. We've seen some buyback now, and the total going back up after the 51.5 back to 52. So at this current moment, I don't see a whole lot in terms of line movement, side or total for Jacksonville and KC. This isn't one of these games you have to rush to the betting window, whichever side you like in this one. Now, it's certainly a fairly unique scenario for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember, they just finished a game in which they were -5 in turnovers, and they won and covered. Ralph Michaels, nice enough to put out a little tweet this morning from his database talking about what teams that have had a 5 turnover differential deficit winning. Since 1989, teams with -5 turnovers, 7 and 169 in straight up. That's 4% winners. That being said, in their next game, which is what we're concerned about for Jacksonville, after being -5 in turnovers and winning, 3-3-1 against the spread. There's nothing there. It's not like they all get bombed the next week. No, they all show up the next week. There's been a mixed bag for teams like Jacksonville that were, shall we say, do we call the Jags lucky or unlucky? They were -5 in turnovers and found a way to win, but they were down 27-0 and found a way to win. And that's kind of lucky. And yet, when you're -5 in turnovers, you're doing something right. You're clearly doing something right. They don't have extra time, which may be a concern. KC does. Obviously, we talk about Andy Reid and his track record in the postseason, his track record with extra time to prepare. It's pretty good. That said, the Jags been a feisty dog. I'll just leave it at that. I don't know what I'm doing in this. I really don't. From a power rating standpoint, there's nothing there. From a total standpoint, there's not a lot there. This comes down to how do we think Jacksonville is going to react off of last week's win. Is that confidence or is that exhale time? And we look at KC coming out of the bye week, a team that has largely underachieved against the spread this season, not a team with a huge betting bandwagon. Does KC actually offer any value at this number? And that's for me to think about throughout the course of the week. But from a Monday morning perspective, this is not a must rush to the betting window sense of urgency for this one. Certainly not like the next game where, unfortunately, there's still a couple out there. But that line has moved in the course of the last hour. The next game we'll talk about, there may be some urgency for.
Like the breakdown, Teddy. Yeah, talking about, is Jacksonville lucky or not? Let us know what you guys think in the reply section. I don't think so. I think they were kind of unlucky and overcame it. That first, the first interception, that was tipped at the line and kind of went against them. To tell you the truth, Teddy, the second quarter, I had a bet on Jacksonville, and I was watching with my girlfriend. We're also watching kind of a Netflix series. So by the second quarter, they're down big. I'm like, all right, let's watch an episode of this of The Shooter on Netflix. Then come back to the second half.
Yeah. I understand that. There are times, and it doesn't happen to me a lot, but there are times where you're watching this game, you're like, I am done with this game. Yeah. And then if there's something to click back on, did you get back for the fourth quarter? Did you get to enjoy the fourth quarter at the end? Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
They're certainly good. There are times you're like, me watching isn't going to help my and look, mental health is a piece of this equation, all right? If it's making you crazy to watch this game and your team's getting crushed and it's not, you're allowed to walk away. Come back, I know it's hard to walk away and come back in an hour. What are you going to do for that hour or two? You can find something to keep your mind entertained. Watching every game full 60 minutes, sometimes you don't want to do that. Most of that, I watch NFL every Sunday, all season. I don't watch every game 60 minutes every week. Even ones I have wagers on, even ones that I have big wagers on. When there's a reason to turn it off, there's a reason to turn it off. And sometimes there's no reason to turn it back on.
Yeah, absolutely, Teddy. I don't know. I guess like a little mental health for sports bettors. Maybe Netflix, because they're usually about 45, 50 minutes an episode if you watch one, at least The Shooter, which I'm watching right now. It tend to work out. Then I came back right for the third quarter. So I just didn't want to say anything because that second quarter, I didn't watch every play. But I did notice, some of the interceptions. I know that first one was tipped. And going down five turnovers, I would almost feel like that team is the unlucky one. But I don't know. Just you kind of brought up the question there. That's what I thought. Teddy, I did have a question for you in terms of, well, actually, we can save it for question hour. Guys, feel free to fire away what questions you have in the live chat, also in the reply section. We'll get to that. I have a question for you concerning this Jacksonville and Kansas City game, and also this next game, New York Giants and Philadelphia Eagles. We got Saturday night action here, 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific kick, 3:03, 3:04. New York Football Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. We're seeing Fly Eagles fly, -7.5 point home favorites, 48 being the total. Giants, Eagles, NFC East matchup. What are we liking here, Teddy?
Yeah, and unfortunately, this line's already moved. I can't realistically give you an emergency betting alert on it right now because there was 7 across the board this morning and 47 last night. Now we're at 7.5 and 48. There are still a few 7s out there. And avid line shoppers can find one if you like the Philadelphia piece of the equation. But the markets have essentially moved already, as they will on a Monday morning in playoff season. The 7's largely gone. The prevailing number here, 7.5. And again, we've also seen this total get bet up. There were 46.5 and 47 last night. 47 was the prevailing number. And this morning we're seeing 48s pretty much painted across the board. and it could go higher. There's a couple of leading indicator books that have 48, the over, with a little bit of extra juice. So, and that has to do a lot to do with Jalen Hurts. I think the money for Philly and the money for the over has to do with Hurts and his latest reports of that he should be back to full health in this one. My powering for the number, my powering number for the game comes a little bit shorter. It came at I call it 6 3/4, either 7 even money, or 6.5 minus 120 for Philly. So I call it the 6 3/4 line, or 6.5/7. But that's where my number came out in the game and opened 7, and now is at 7.5. So my number says there's a little bit of value here on the G-men, plus the points. We've seen the Giants go on the road as an organization and play, and take a wild card win and turn that into real momentum. And the Giants yesterday, I don't know that it's moving forward, but the Giants yesterday were probably, you have to power rate them higher than you powered them at any point during the regular season. Certainly from that offensive standpoint. That offense worked. I know Minnesota's defense isn't there, but for much of this year, Giants offense has been a stick in the mud. The offensive line hasn't been able to get blocks. Philly's really strong in the trenches, both sides of the football. And that may be a significant matchup disadvantage for the G-men. That being said, Philly also has a track record of having their fair share of difficulties when they're the number 1 seed and have the bye, and an opposing team comes in with some momentum. It's not like we haven't seen the Eagles fail in this situation once, twice, many times before. And we've seen the G-men go on these roads. And again, it's a different Giants team now than then. But as an organization, we've seen twice in the last, 15 years where the Giants won that first wild card game round on the road and ended up parlaying that to a Super Bowl. However, those teams were better defensively than the Giants this year. Another reason why this total has been bet up. G-men off a 1 shootout. Philly, if Hurts is healthy, might want them to play in another one.
Yeah, could the ghost of Eli Manning come out? And, hey, Daniel Jones, they share the same, I guess, coordinator, head coach from college. Who knows? Maybe the Giants go on a little run here, Teddy. That'd be fun. Hey, guys, yeah, for sure. We got Abby Jackson in the house, Bert Bondi as well, Paco Healy. Do you like the Eagles on a teaser, guys? I guess for long teasers, they might be a qualifier here, Teddy. Do teasers kind of interest you this round in the playoffs?
So the teaser picks this week, you're going to take KC down under a field goal. You're going to take Jacksonville down. I'm sorry, we're going to take KC down under a field goal. In terms of more your standard Wong teasers, you're going to take the Philly down under a field goal, and that's really the classic 2-team teaser for this week, is teasing the 2 favorites down.
Yeah, that would be the way to go.
I would not be shocked if one of those 2 teams loses straight up.
Interesting. Okay. I guess that kind of leads into my question. Just fire away right now. Jacksonville, Kansas City, New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles. It's the 1 seed involved here on the Saturday slate, meaning Philadelphia at home and Kansas City at home. Teddy, last year we saw both 1 seeds go down. The Bengals beat the Titans, the 4 over the 1, and the San Francisco 49ers went into Lambeau Field and beat the number 1 seed Green Bay Packers. So both 1 seeds last year went down outright. You kind of led into your feelings on that. Do you actually think there's something to that, the bye week kind of making these teams a little bit rusty?
And again, it's not just a bye week. The teams at the very top of the standings, have been in good position from mid-December? It wasn't like week 17 was max intensity, or week 18. The Chiefs played a max intensity game in week 18. They hadn't played well, and they wanted to come out and show they could still they could put something together, and they played a pretty good game that week. Philly didn't play a max intensity game week 18 or week 17 or this past week. So they've been off for a month, in terms of maximum intensity game day. How's Sirianni's tracker in the playoffs? Oh, is that bet on? Sure isn't. Not so much. Is Philly vulnerable? Potentially. Of the 2, I think Philly. And Jacksonville's a team that has shown us multiple times this year, that they're good enough to beat somebody when they play a half of football. When Jacksonville starts rolling, they can play this terrible first half. They can have a stretch of where they turn the ball over again and again and still find a way to win. Jackson's done that all year. You know, they're a team that has done very, very well overcoming adversity. So is KC. But KC, this whole regular season, KC's been going through the motion. You know, they said they flipped the switch in week 18, and we'll see if that switch gets flipped on here. But, you know, we have it. Kansas City's whole season is let's get to the playoffs. A lot of pressure on the home team in that one. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if we see an upset. I would be shocked if one of the two number one seeds go down. And I wouldn't be unbelievably shocked if they both went down. I mean, it happens. It's football. But for all the let's get the number one seed and rest, you know, history shows us that's not always the best scenario for these playoffs.
Man, that'd be crazy. Both of them go down. That'd be 4 straight if you include last year. I'd have to go back to the year before. I don't have that in front of me. We got Anthony in the house, Gerald as well, Smoky Steam Bets, Dano. Thanks for joining us live. CGC fan, Paco Healy, Brent Hall in the house, Paul Blakeney from Essex, England in the house. Let us know where you're watching from and what you're looking to bet, where you agree, where you disagree. All is welcome here, guys. As we turn the page to Sunday, January 22nd in the early game, 3 o'clock Eastern, 3:15, 3:16 here. A good one, Teddy. Maybe the marquee game of the weekend, Cincinnati Bengals, Buffalo Bills. Bills, -4, -4.5, depending where you're shopping. Almost a split line. I'd say more actually 4 in the hooks now, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen. 50.5 being the total. Bengals at Bills here, Teddy.
So my party number for the game is only Buffalo -3. The markets opened 4.5 and 50 last night. Some books have moved to 4 this morning. The total has been bet up at some books as well to 50.5. I think we're looking. It's hard to say. I think we're looking like the total may well. From a total standpoint, I think from 50, it's only going up. All right, unless the weather's bad, which we don't know yet for next Sunday, Buffalo. But total-wise, the markets are going to like these two offenses. And at 50, and if you like the over, I do think there's at least moderate urgency there. Although, if the forecast is crappy, and then 7 days out, it's a little early for that, or 6 days out, it's a little early. Usually on Tuesdays, you start to see the markets move off the look-ahead forecast. But it's certainly a scenario at 50/50.5 where I know that since he played under, actually the guy that cashed the over on the closing number last night, but the total opened 44.5 and it got bet down to 40 and it lands 41. It wasn't like the Bengals moved the football up and down the field in that ballgame, but bettors and the markets certainly think that Cincy and Buffalo have the potential for a high-scoring affair here, especially given some of the concerns of the Bills' pass defense yesterday. I mean, all season, Buffalo's dealt with injuries in their secondary. And yesterday, with a third-string quarterback and a lot of drop passes from Miami's receivers. Miami receivers hadn't dropped passes. They probably would have won the game.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo's secondary got torched. All right, there were open receivers all game, and that's a concern against Joe Burrow and a pretty dynamic receiving core and a Bengals team that's as hot as any in football right now. So my gut, at the 4.5, I'm like, this has to go down. It has to come down to 4, and it has in a lot of books, and yet the 4.5s are holding. My power number is only 3 for the Bills. That being said, you like a team that is able to survive and advance without playing their best game, and Buffalo did that. It's in the postseason. You see it all the time. Team that plays great one week, and the next week they play someone different, and oh, wow, it looks like a completely different team out there. The team plays crappy one week but find a ways to win. They come out next week, and all of a sudden they look like the team that we thought they were heading into the postseason. So the Bills able to survive and advance off of not their best game, and they've been through a lot the last 3 weeks. So, maybe that's why this number is a little bit higher than I thought it would be. And then, when I'm seeing the early consensus numbers are all Cincinnati for this one. And the Bengals have been the undervalued commodity. Again, they went into last night's game 21-3 against the spread. Their last 24 lost, failed to cover the number, the closing number. They covered the opener. You bet Cincy at the open at 6.5. You covered. They won by 7, but they failed to cover the closer against the Bengals. Another 21-4 ATS. But this team has been an undervalued commodity all year long and most of last year. But some of the concerns for Cincy. Number one, they much like Buffalo, they almost got beat by a backup or third-string quarterback last night. Pass defense got lit up. They're outgained on the ground, 5-1 in that ball game. And obviously, when you win the game on a 98-yard fumble return touchdown, not like you're feeling super confident, how well your team played. But Cincy, too, able to survive and advance in a game where they didn't play their best. I tend to like teams the following week in the postseason if they're able to win one game without playing their best game. Because these teams all have a best game in them. That's why they're going to be 8 teams left. And they're all pretty good after this week. So I don't mind a team that didn't play their best game last week that may well play it, that's capable of playing it this week. In this instance, we have 2 teams that didn't play their best game, and yet both still managed to survive and advance. And obviously, we didn't see, we saw them play a quarter a few weeks ago, but we didn't see the regular season matchup between these 2 teams that may well have adjusted who gets the home field for this game. Cincy wasn't happy about that. Bengals went with a little bit of chip on their shoulder in that regard.
Teddy, we are seeing the early weather projections here. I'm seeing 35 degrees, 9 to 18 mile an hour winds in Buffalo. Of course, still multiple days until the game time, but something to watch there. A little bit of weather might be an issue.
Just in terms of the total. If the weather is decent, this total is likely to rise. If the weather is crappy, the total ain't going anywhere. So that 9 to 18, if it ends up being 15 to 20 mile an hour winds, the total's not going to be there. If it ends up being 5 to 10 mile an hour winds, the total may well go up.
Like it. Okay, so maybe
That's
little.
a pretty wide range, the 9 to 18.
Yeah. We're also like 6 days out in talking the Northeast weather, so keep that in mind, guys. We got one more game here on Sunday. RJ also saying, I'm concerned for the Bengals O-line injuries. Yeah, their starting left tackle Williams, he hobbled off. That's, the old left tackle.
Yeah, they're without 3 offensive line starters last night, it showed. Let's see what the injury report looks like, because when you're missing 3 guys from your starting 5 in the OL, in the postseason, that can matter. Maybe that's why this line's higher than my powering number. Actually, I probably didn't adjust Cincy down enough for the offensive line injury. That's an excellent point. Great comment. Thank you.
RJ in the house, in the live chat on the WagerTalk YouTube. This is the NFL opening line report. Teddy covers, Drew Martin breaking it down, getting you on the right side of some of these moves. 10 a.m. Pacific time each and every Monday throughout the NFL regular season and playoffs. We'll also be doing some in the offseason, a little NFL draft look as kind of the summer goes on, and then getting you ready for next season, guys. One of the better shows, in my opinion, on the channel in the sports betting landscape. So let us know below in the reply section if you're watching, if you agree, where you disagree. We've got last game here, 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific, 3:17, 3:18. Teddy covers San Francisco 49ers as the host. Their opponents still to be determined. Tonight's matchup, Monday nighter here, Dallas and Tampa Bay. We can touch on that if you want. We are seeing the Cowboys -2 in the hook as the road favorite, 45.5 being the total. So I guess all-encompassing here, Cowboys and Buccaneers tonight, and then how that leads into Sunday's matchup in the divisional round at San Francisco, Teddy.
So let's start with this. If you like Dallas for tonight, I would bet them now. There are a few rogue threes starting to pop for the Cowboys, even with Ryan Jensen, the Bucs Pro Bowl center, expected to get his 2022 debut here in the playoffs. He got hurt in training camp, remember? And I'm like, that's an impact injury. And it was. Jensen's supposed to be back today, which surprised me. But we are seeing a fair bit of Dallas money right now, mostly 2.5 minus juice. But like I said, there are some threes that are starting to pop. If you like the Cowboys, modest urgency there. It's not like you have to run to the betting window, but I wouldn't wait necessarily until right before kickoff. This could go up to 3 as a market wide between now and kickoff. I don't know that it will, but it could. Remember, that's where it opened. I have projections here for if Dallas or Tampa faces San Francisco My powering number for San Fran Dallas right now will be the 49ers minus 6.5 at home. If it's Tampa traveling to San Fran, it'd be San Fran minus 9.5 at home. Remember, those two teams played not that long ago, and 9.5 was a very short number for that game. It was 35-7 San Fran, and it wasn't that close. It was a complete annihilation. So maybe that number's even higher than the 9.5. Maybe it's a 10 if it's a Niners Bucs. But if Dallas looks good tonight, I would call it 6.5/7 for where I would expect this line to come out. I saw a couple other projections that were a little bit shorter. But San Fran looks pretty dominant. What the 49ers did against Seattle, the script couldn't be any better for Shanahan. You know, you took a punch and you punched back. You faced some adversity and you figured it out and you went on and dominated the game. And then in terms of confidence-inducing, that's very confidence-inducing for San Fran. When you talk about playing with Mr. Irrelevant as your quarterback and Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy's now thrown for multiple touchdowns 6 times in the last 7 weeks. And the 49ers have scored 33-plus in every one of those ball games. It's an offense that's clicking right now. San Fran looks like a Super Bowl team, even with a third-string QB. See if it gets there. A long way to go, obviously. They don't even know who they're going to play yet. Of the two teams, I would think Dallas more likely to be able to pull off the upset in San Fran than Tampa. But Tampa may not be easy to beat tonight, given their strength of schedule edge. And Tom Brady is a home dog on Monday Night Football. So San Fran is going to be obviously chalk here. They may well be significant chalk. And depending on how tonight's game plays out, if Dallas is dominant, it'll come less than a touchdown. If it's a close game and somebody wins it at the end, it'll be a touchdown plus regardless, I think, of who the 49ers play. There's a lot of betting market support for San Fran right now. And coming off a game in which they were tested and then found a way to dominate, looking at what the back half of their season is, look, San Fran's a team that has a lot of respect in the marketplace right now, and they'll be priced accordingly.
Yeah, a lot of talent in that locker room. Number one defense as well. Any questions, fire away in the chat box. Teddy, question for you. Going by the closing lines, we did talk about that Ravens-Bengals game. Kind of depends where you got in on the total, but all overs cashing in the wild card round. Anything you take away from that, maybe for next season in the wild card round, or maybe to carry over here in the divisional round this season, all the overs cashing in?
In terms of takeaways, I don't know there's a ton of takeaways. Like how can we use this info moving forward?
Right.
For what we saw, there's a couple of factors in play. One, if you look at points versus yardage for the weekend, there were a bunch of games. The Buffalo-Miami game is a great example. That game played out to like 30 points, and they got 65. There was some randomness in there. The Jags and the Chargers was like that. The Bengals and the Ravens, that was not an offensive juggernaut game, but somehow they were scoring touchdowns instead of field goals. Bad news for anyone with the field goal prop over in that contest last night. It wasn't a scenario in which it was like every team got 500 yards or 400, 500 yards of offense and they were just marching up and down the field. It just worked out to be a lot of points for the yards that there were. When we talk about how it's going to affect the divisional round games, certainly we're going to see totals that are a little bit higher. If you say every game went over last week, bet all the unders this week, there's dumber strategies in that. Usually I like to see 2 weeks in a row of a bunch of overs, and then you say, all right, let's just bet the entire board under and see what happens. Over the years, after 2 weeks of steady overs, I've done okay with that. Eked out a profit. But in a 4-game sample size, it's fairly limited. There's only 7 games left in the season after tonight. 4 this week, 2 next week, and then Super Bowl. So when we talk about next year, like everyone forget what happened this year for next year. No one's going to remember that, or even if tonight's game goes over, someone will remember, but it's not going to affect the numbers as they're making them. So the markets may adjust a little bit upward next week and next year, and the markets probably adjusted a little bit upward for this week. Again, we saw the Giants Philly open 47 at a lot of books. Now we're 48. We saw the Jags at 51.5. Now they're 52. We saw the Bengals Bills at 49.5. They open. Now they're 50.5. So we are seeing some over money coming in. That is clearly affecting the marketplace at least modestly. Half a point, a point. The over money's flowing right now. And I we're hanging around yesterday with all the Wager Talk Sports Memo guys over at the Ralph Michaels and Brian and Jordan Miko and all the guys. And the part of the conversation was hard to play an NFL under right now, isn't it? And I think there's a thought like that in the betting market. Hard to play these games under. So everyone's rolling back, which means the total is going to be priced a point or two higher, which means there's probably some value on the under. Is there anything I'm going to auto bet because this week's games all flew over the total? No. There's nothing like, I'm definitely looking. I want to bet. But in terms of will there potentially be a little bit of, a point or two of extra value in some of these under next week? Maybe.
Teddy, I got a little conspiracy theory in me. I just want to shout out there. Let me know if you think I'm just off the wall crazy or if there's something to this. So, the NFL going off billions of dollars on the line. I'm not sure if they signed the deal or whatnot with YouTube going forward for their product and their distribution. A lot of money, though. I mean, the minimum contract, I believe, in 2026 for any player on the roster is going to be $1 million. Think about that, guys. In terms of, game checks, it's just a lot of money on the line here. And we're getting into the playoffs, a lot of eyeballs on what's going on in the NFL playoffs, and offense being kind of sexy out there. Do you think they're just kind of in the referee's ear, like, hey, let's get some scoring up here in the NFL playoffs? And it's kind of a new trend, this season in wild card. I don't know. Do you think there's anything there that we can kind of jump in on that as sports bettors and start betting the overs because of that?
No, I don't. I mean, think about how this year started with that run of unders, and every primetime game is going under and under. The Monday night game's going under. The Sunday night game's going under. The Thursday night game's going under. The first half of the season was a consistent and enormous run of unders on the TV games.
Okay.
So, the NFL likes close games. If you want a conspiracy theory, take the team that's trailing. The team gets blown out early. The NFL doesn't want the Bills to win 52-0. They want, that touchdown's going to get overturned, and now here's Miami, get a little bit of momentum, and now it's a whole new game. They don't want the Chargers to win, 27-0. NFL wants close games. More than points, they want close games.
Like it, Teddy. Guys, fire away any questions here. We got a bunch of them, Teddy. Richie, Kenny asking, any Super Bowl value right now? Seeing the Giants plus, 3,300, 2,500 for the Jaguars. Bucs, of course, still with the game tonight in the Cowboys, 20-1. Anything, long shot wise, any value here, Super Bowl futures you like right now, Teddy?
Anyone who goes to any sports book about any Super Bowl future is lazy. That is a lazy way to bet, and you will not get the maximum return on your investment for doing it that way. And I'm being a little bitch right here because it really bugs me. All right? This is one thing that bugs me because this is the guy wants the ticket to tweet. Oh, look, I got so-and-so, and I want to tweet it out. I want to put it on social media, and I got so-and-so at 12-1 or 20-1 or 50-1 or whoever it is. The future book is for suckers. If you want to actually make money betting on whoever you want to the Super Bowl, I don't care who you want to win the Super Bowl. Dallas. You want Dallas to win the Super Bowl. They're playing tonight. Bet Dallas on the money line tonight. If Dallas wins, play Dallas on the money line next week. If Dallas wins, roll it over and play Dallas on the money line the following week. If they win, roll it over and play Dallas on the money line in the Super Bowl. If you make those 4 bets, and the reason I'm using Dallas, I use an example for a video I did earlier last week. The future book price for Dallas was 12-1. And I used very conservative estimates of what the power rating numbers were, what the money lines were going to be for Dallas and then the other 3 games. But the minimum I came up with was 28-1 if you bet Dallas that way versus 12-1 if you bet them on the future. The minimum. Just roll it over. Now, you don't have to roll it all over. Whenever you bet a future and you get to the Super Bowl, now, do I hedge? Don't I hedge? You're actually going to bet some money against yourself. When you bet on that same team on the money line every week, you can decide, Super Bowl, you know what? I'm not going to risk it all. I'm going to lock in some profit. I'm not going to bet against myself. I'm going to bet on Dallas again, but I'm just going to pull some back. So now I've locked in a profit, and I'm going to risk the rest of it. And I'm not betting against myself. There's a reason that futures for all sports, NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, NHL, you walk into any sports book in Vegas, and that's what you're going to see. The future sheets right there. Boom, this team, that team. They're 12-1. They're 20-1. They're 50-1, whoever it is. Those are very, very, very high hold bets for the books. And if you want to make the most money betting on any team to win the Super Bowl, just bet them on the money line every single week. So I don't mean to rant and rave, and I certainly don't mean to point fingers. You did this wrong, blah, blah, blah. But it's an important lesson. It's a valuable lesson. And this works in the NBA playoffs. It works in the NHL playoffs. It works in Major League Baseball. The only exception that I've ever found, and there are exceptions to this rule, when you find a team that's alive mid-season and they're 50 or 100-1. Here's a team that's good. And you get them at 50-1 or 75-1 or 100-1 mid-season. They got off to a slow start, but they have life. That's a scenario, the only scenario I can think of, where you're not going to get, if they make the playoffs and on a roll, they're going to be priced like a good team on the roll. When you find that 50, a real long shot mid-season that's live, that's one time you can do that. But at the start of the playoffs, near the start of the playoffs, you cannot bet the future book. You have to do it. You can. Many bettors do. To be a fully, to maximize your return on investment, you cannot bet the future book anymore. You just play that team on the money line every week. And you can decide how much you want to bet week in, week out. Great question, and gave me a chance to rant. And I don't mean, I'm not pointing fingers. I appreciate the question, but there's no freaking way I'm going to make any bets on the future board right now. It's all money line, week by week.
Well said, Teddy. And just last thing on that, guys, like when you're betting just one game, side or total, you're having to risk $110 to win 100 just to put numbers behind it. A lot of times when you're betting the future, their take is the word Teddy used. It's a higher vig. So you're pretty much having to risk like $140 at a lot of sports books to win 100. So their take, it's costing you more money to make the bet. So great stuff, Teddy. Abby asking, with offensive linemen or defensive linemen, how much of a drop-off is there in the line, or is it not a factor, Teddy?
The betting markets do not adjust to offensive line injuries or defensive line injuries very often. You find minor adjustments. However, when the offensive line is a sieve, all the offensive production goes way down, and the markets adjust to that. Or if the defensive line is a sieve, and the opposing team's offensive production is way up and their defensive numbers are way down, the markets will adjust, react to the stats based on the poor line play. If you can find a team, that's where I base all my football handicapping, is in the trenches. I like teams with good offensive lines. I like teams with good defensive lines. I don't like teams with bad offensive lines. I don't like teams with bad defensive lines. If you do nothing but focus on that particular matchup for every football game you bet, I think you'll make money. It's worked for me over the years.
Teddy, Patrick asking how much of a positive adjustment do you give to teams coming off of a bye week? Of course, we talked about the two teams, Philadelphia and Kansas City. Do you actually put a number on it, give them, an advantage in the point spread?
Yeah, I put a number on it. Here's the number. Goose egg. Zero. Again, Philadelphia hasn't played a meaningful game. I mean, they did. What they did, they lost twice. And then some of their starters beat the Giants back up, and then they had their last week off. They played a good game in 5 weeks. The beginning of December. Does the week off help them? I mean, they get a little bit healthier, but they're not in rhythm. You talked about it, Drew. Both teams that had the bye last week have lost. We've seen many times the teams that have that momentum, and all of a sudden you take your foot off the accelerator, and it's hard to get back. So I don't give, in terms of a big adjustment for the teams that had the bye week, I don't give them any edge for it. I give them a home field advantage, but I'm not adjusting their power rating up because they had time off. Not even a little bit.
Guys, enough time for Yeah, good question. Enough time for another question or two. Really appreciate it, guys. If you could smash that like button as well, and feel free to comment below. Anthony asking right at the top here, in the NFL, at what point during the week does the Vegas books increase the betting limits? Question mark. Is there any difference in the regular season versus the postseason?
That's a great question. And honestly, I don't know. I'm not making limit bets. I'm not going in there betting 10 dimes on these games. I'm not. So in terms of like what the limits are, I don't have a problem making my bets early in the week or midweek or late week. We're betting a dime or 2 dimes. That tends to be my bet sizes. I'm not worried about making a 29 bet. That's not how I roll. Normally, they'll have openers Sunday, Monday, and by Tuesday, the full limits will be available. During wild card weekend and stuff like that, they may make the limits even bigger over the weekend. So there'll be adjustment early in the week, and then maybe a second adjustment later in the week for big bets. But at this time of the year, look, you can get down whatever you want to get down on these games. You really can. The books, the volume is significant enough that any one bet's not going to make or break them. There shouldn't be an issue getting down whatever you want on these games. But know this, again, I'm betting a dime or two, okay? I'm not betting 5, 10 dimes on any of these games. That's not how I'm wired. And no one's going to look me in the eye and say, wow, that's a really weak point spread. The regular season, you might find a number that's off. There was a week 18 number. That was a Minnesota-Chicago number. That was a bad number, okay? But you're not going to look at me in the eye, oh, yeah, this point spread's off by 3 points. Or this point spread's off by a touchdown. The guy who was sending me marketing, all the lines this week are off by 10 points. No, they're not. And therefore, when it comes to making giant wagers at this time of the year, there are big bets to be made. Again, there's one that I'm looking at this weekend, but it's not a let's back the Brinks truck up to the betting window and bet everything I got on it. It's just one bet. Even if it's a big bet, it's still just one bet.
Yeah, well said, Teddy. I think you're right on the Tuesday thing during regular season. But you also mentioned there they give you more of a limit this time in the NFL playoffs because they know they're going to get a lot of money. They can move it to get a lot of money on the other side throughout the week. So yeah, I'm with you. In college basketball, for what it's worth, guys, 8 a.m. Pacific time is when they kind of open up the limits in college basketball. But the limits are a lot lower in college basketball than they are in the NFL playoffs. So that's kind of part of the equation. Teddy, I mean, we hit a lot of the questions. Great questions out there, guys. And feel free next week to join us live, of course, 10 a.m. Pacific time for the NFL opening line report here in the live chat box on WagerTalk YouTube. And also feel free, guys, to drop a line below. Any questions in the reply section, let us know where you're watching from, and any questions, we'll answer them on next week's show. Teddy, awesome show as always, man. Great analysis. Anything you wanted to throw out before we shut this down?
Throw out the trash, man. I don't know. That's my. Listen, thanks so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. I enjoy doing this every week all season. I did miss one episode this year, but that's the exception rather than the rule. But we'll do it again next week. We'll do it all through the postseason. And again, this time of the year, there's only a couple of games to talk about. We will have more time for questions, analysis, all that kind of stuff. So whatever you'd like to hear us discuss, throw a comment in the chat. We really appreciate it. And best of luck Monday Night Football this evening and throughout the course of the divisional round of the NFL playoffs.
He's Teddy Covers, WagerTalkSportsMemo.com, 75% last 3 weeks, 31-19, 62% all sports this year in 2023. So check him out, Teddy Covers Experts page, those big ticket plays as well. Since 2021, 51-25, 67%, those 5%ers. Teddy Covers, WagerTalk or SportsMemo.com. I'm Drew Martin, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button. Cash those tickets.
June 2014, WagerTalk joined Twitter. August 2014, Prez loaded the first ever picks at WagerTalk. September 2014, Marco D'Angelo and Gianni the Greek filmed the first ever video for WagerTalk TV. Fast forward to today, and we now have over 58,000 Twitter followers, 110,000 subscribers on YouTube, and have become the premier brand in sports betting. So thank you. We truly appreciate everyone who has supported this amazing journey. And on Thursday, January 19th at both WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, all daily picks packages that day will be priced at $11, including any 5% best bets normally priced at $35. And all one day all access normally priced at $39 will be cut in half and priced at only $19. No coupons will be needed. All handicappers at both WagerTalk and Sports Memo are included in Customer Appreciation Day. And discounts will go live at midnight Wednesday, January 18th.